My name is Sam, and this happened when I was a junior in college. I just moved into a small off-campus apartment with my best friend Kyle. The place wasn't great, cramped, a little run down, but it was cheap. And as a couple of broke students, that was all that mattered. The first month went by without any major problems. But then something strange started happening. It was little things at first. A creak in the hallway when no one was there. The bathroom light flickering for no reason. I brushed it off as faulty wiring and old pipes. The landlord wasn't exactly known for keeping up with repairs. But then, one night, things escalated. The first incident. It was Friday night. Kyle had gone out with his girlfriend, leaving me alone. I was halfway through some horror movie I'd seen 100 times when I heard it. A knock at the front door. Not the loud, impatient kind. It was soft, deliberate, like someone wanted to be sure I heard it, but didn't want to disturb the neighbors. I checked the peephole. Nobody was there. Thinking I imagined it, I sat back down. But then it happened again. I opened the door. The hallway was empty, just the dim fluorescent light buzzing overhead. I stepped out, looking both ways. Nothing. But as I turned to close the door, I noticed something. A small folded piece of paper, slipped under the door frame. I picked it up, my stomach knotting. "I see you." My heart pounded. I checked the locks 3 times that night, but nothing else happened. The figure. Over the next week, I couldn't shake the feeling of being watched. Every shadow in the corner of my eye made my skin crawl. Then, one night, as I was brushing my teeth, I glanced at the small bathroom window, and I saw it. A figure, just standing there, barely visible in the shadows. A man. I froze. His face was obscured, but I could see the outline of his head, the way he tilted it slightly. Watching. By the time I ran outside, he was gone. Kyle thought I was losing it. I couldn't blame him. There was no proof, no evidence, just my paranoia. But then I started finding more notes. "You look lovely when you sleep. I'm always here." The break-in. It was Valentine's Day when it happened. Kyle had gone away for the weekend, leaving me alone again. I tried to convince myself it was fine, just a regular night. No creepy notes, no shadowy figures. But at exactly 2:13 a.m., I woke up. There was a sound, a faint scraping from the living room, like nails against wood. I held my breath, listening. Then, a click. The front door. The lock had turned. I bolted upright, my chest tightening. Footsteps. Slow, deliberate, moving toward my room. I grabbed my phone, my fingers trembling as I dialed 911. "Someone's in my apartment," I whispered, barely able to speak. The operator kept me on the line, but the footsteps stopped. Then came a sound I'll never forget. The doorknob rattled. Whoever was out there was trying to get in. I barricaded myself against the door, tears streaming down my face. Minutes felt like hours until I heard the wail of sirens. When the police arrived, I practically collapsed into their arms. But the intruder, gone. The only thing they found was a single object placed in the middle of the living room. A heart-shaped box of chocolates. No fingerprints, no sign of forced entry. Just the lingering knowledge that whoever it was, they had been inside. The aftermath. The police never found him. Kyle and I moved out a week later. I didn't care how much the new place cost. I just needed to get away. But I still can't shake that feeling. Every time I hear an unexpected knock, every time I catch a glimpse of movement in the corner of my eye, I wonder, is he still watching? Happy Valentine's Day. This story isn't really mine, but I was there for every terrifying moment. My name is Lena, and my husband Jack and I have lived in our cozy lakeside house for almost 20 years now. We moved here for the quiet, for the peaceful views, and to enjoy our retirement. But what happened last year changed everything. We didn't have many neighbors, which I liked. Our closest one was an old fishing cabin across the lake that had been empty for years. It was a little rundown, peeling paint, a collapsed porch, but it didn't bother us. In fact, I kind of liked the ghostly charm it added to our view. That is, until the lights came on. A new neighbor. One evening, as I rocked in my chair on our porch, I noticed a soft glow from the cabin. At first, I thought my eyes were playing tricks on me. But as the night darkened, the light became clear. "Jack," I called inside, "someone's at the cabin." He stepped out, squinting across the water. Well, I'll be damned. Someone finally bought it. A few days later, we saw him. A young man named Ethan. Early 30s, clean cut with that eager city energy. He said he was a writer seeking solitude for his latest project. We welcomed him, brought over a homemade pie, and exchanged small talk. He seemed polite enough, but something about the way his eyes lingered on the lake unsettled me. Strange happenings. Ethan kept to himself. I rarely saw him outside, aside from the occasional cigarette on the porch. But at night, his cabin glowed like a beacon. The lights never went off. And then the noises started. A faint tapping sound echoed across the lake. It would begin at random times, sometimes growing louder, like frantic knocking. Jack heard it too, but we figured it was just the old pipes in Ethan's place. But then I saw the shadow. Late one night, I woke up, unable to sleep. I wandered to the kitchen for water and glanced out the window. There, across the lake, I saw a figure in Ethan's cabin, pale and thin, standing just beyond the glass. But it wasn't Ethan. The figure was too tall. Its limbs were unnaturally long, its face obscured. It stood motionless, staring out. I blinked, and just like that, it was gone. Descent into madness. The next day, I told Jack what I saw. He laughed it off, blaming my late-night imagination. But I couldn't shake the feeling. Something was wrong. Ethan became even more reclusive. I saw him less and less. His once pristine appearance grew disheveled. Dark circles formed under his eyes, and he stopped waving when I'd watch him from the porch. Then, one morning, a noise startled me awake. A low, guttural scream from across the lake. Jack bolted up. What the hell was that? We ran to the window. The cabin door was wide open, banging in the wind. I could barely see through the fog, but I knew something was terribly wrong. "We have to check on him," I insisted. Jack hesitated but nodded. The cabin's secret. The cabin smelled of damp wood and something far worse, a metallic tang that clung to the air. The living room was in shambles. Papers were scattered. A half-empty bottle of whiskey lay on the floor, but Ethan was nowhere to be seen. "Ethan," Jack called out. Silence. We checked every room, and then I saw it. In the corner of the bedroom, a massive hole in the wall. The wooden planks had been pried apart, revealing a dark, narrow passage. "What the hell?" Jack whispered. I felt something cold, something watching. I wanted to run, but Jack's curiosity drove him forward. He peered inside the hole, his flashlight cutting through the blackness. And then we saw it. Bones, hundreds of them, small, fragile, scattered across the dirt like discarded toys. And at the center, a single rotted chair. Chains dangled from the walls, rusted with age. Scratches marked the wood, desperate claw marks. "Oh God," I whispered. Jack stumbled back, gagging. That's when we heard the whisper. A soft, trembling voice. "Get out." Aftermath. We ran, faster than we ever had. By the time the authorities arrived, the cabin stood empty. No sign of Ethan. No sign of the bones. The only thing left was a single object, sitting on the porch. An old, cracked mirror. Its surface smeared with something dark. But when I looked closer, I saw something else. A face. Ethan's face, twisted in silent agony. They never found him. The cabin remains abandoned. But sometimes, on still nights, I swear I see that same pale figure standing in the window, staring out across the lake, waiting, and the tapping. It never stopped. When I moved into my new place, I was just looking for a fresh start. I won't go into the details, but let's just say a nasty divorce left me feeling like I needed to get as far away from my old life as possible. The house I found was perfect, a small, cozy cottage on the outskirts of a quiet suburban town. The neighbors kept to themselves, and that suited me just fine. The place next door, though, was something else entirely. It was a towering Victorian-style house, painted a deep shade of gray. Unlike the other properties in the neighborhood, which were neat and well-maintained, this one looked like it belonged in a horror movie. The lawn was overgrown, the windows were dirty, and a massive oak tree in the front yard cast eerie shadows over the house. Despite the ominous appearance, I never saw or heard anything unusual at first. No lights, no visitors, nothing. I figured it was abandoned until one evening, about a week after I moved in. I was out on my porch, enjoying the breeze, when I saw it. A flicker of light from one of the upstairs windows. It was only there for a moment, but I was sure I'd seen it. Curiosity got the better of me, so the next day I casually asked my mailman if he knew anything about the house. He gave me a strange look and said, "No one's lived there for years. Last I heard, the family that owned it moved away after something unfortunate." He didn't elaborate and I didn't press. But that night I saw the light again. It became a regular occurrence. Sometimes it would be a dim glow, like from a lantern. Other times it was a sudden flash, like someone turning on a lamp and then quickly switching it off. The weirdest part, the lights always came from the same upstairs window. Always. One night I couldn't take it anymore. I grabbed a flashlight, threw on a jacket, and decided to investigate. My heart pounded as I crossed my yard and approached the old house. The air felt heavier the closer I got. The front door was locked, but around the side I found a basement window that was cracked open. Against my better judgment, I slid it up and climbed inside. The basement was damp and smelled of mold. My flashlight illuminated rows of old furniture covered in sheets, and cobwebs hung from the ceiling like curtains. As I moved further in, I heard something. A faint, rhythmic tapping. It was coming from above. I crept up the narrow staircase and emerged into what must have once been a grand living room. The wallpaper was peeling, and the air was thick with dust. The tapping continued, growing louder. My legs felt like lead as I followed the sound up another set of stairs. At the top was a long hallway, lined with closed doors. The tapping stopped. For a moment, there was silence. Then, from behind the door at the end of the hall, I heard it, a low, guttural whisper. My flashlight flickered as I approached, my pulse racing. I reached for the doorknob, but before I could turn it, the door creaked open on its own. Inside was an empty room. No furniture, no signs of life, just cracked walls and a single boarded-up window. But as I stepped in, I saw it. Scratched into the wooden floorboards over and over again was a single word: leave. I didn't need any more convincing. I bolted from the house, not daring to look back. I didn't sleep that night, and the next morning, I called a local historian to see if they knew anything about the property. What they told me still sends chills down my spine. The house belonged to the Whitmore family, who had disappeared without a trace over a decade ago. No explanation, no clues, just gone. The house had remained abandoned ever since, and the room with the boarded-up window, that was their daughter's room. She was the first to go missing. I don't know what I saw that night. Maybe it was just my imagination, a trick of the shadows. But I haven't seen the lights since, and I'll never step foot in that house again.